Namaskar and welcome to Sunset Television. I am Vishal Dahiya and you're watching our show Perspective, where we bring you detailed analysis of key national and international issues. Today we're going to talk about COVID-19 and mental health. Now, COVID-19 pandemic has caused significant psychological distress worldwide. The initial focus is necessarily on the physical consequences of the infection. However, there is recognition that the significant psychological consequences emerging out of this catastrophe needs to be addressed as well. The recent wave of infections globally, riding on the surge of Omicron variant, have once again brought the issue of mental health during this pandemic in the focus. In fact, a UNICEF survey conducted last year pointed out the scale of this problem specifically for children and youngsters. Realizing the impact that COVID-19 may have on the mental health of the people, Indian government has taken a number of initiatives to provide psychosocial support during COVID-19, including guidelines and advisories for the same. In today's episode, we will discuss and analyze all aspects of this issue. And for more on this, we're joined by a distinguished panel of experts. Let me first introduce them to you. Beginning with, we have with us Dr. Rushi, who's joining us. She's head of department in the Department of Clinical Psychology at RML Hospital in the National Capital. Dr. Ishwar V. Baswareddy, Director of Morarji Desai National Institute of Yoga, is also joining us. And we also have with us Dr. Geeta Desai, Professor, Department of Psychiatry at NIMHANS. Welcome, all of you, to Sunset Television. Let me begin with you, Professor Rushi, and let's start by putting things in perspective here. Let's understand the scale and enormity of the problem which we are facing when we're talking about mental health issues during the COVID-19 pandemic. How big is the challenge?
It was a very big challenge in March 2020 when it got started. And that was the first time everyone in the country, so the elders, the women, the men, because of the financial crisis, because of unemployment, and especially the major impact was on the children and adolescents of our country. Because all the system was shattered. So because in 2020, when there was a shutdown of the schools, there was shutdown of the playgrounds. So the children and adolescents, they were not able to interact with others. They were not able to play. They were not able to go to school. So because of that education, so the huge amount of impact on the education system, that created a huge amount of distress on the children and adolescents, and of course on the parents and the teachers as well, because that was also a new challenge for the teachers because they had to teach through online rather than offline. So in the second wave, when we faced a lot of deaths across the country, so that was another major trauma on all the sections of our community. The elders, the middle-aged, and the children, of course. And the children were, they were experiencing those intense negative emotions like, depression, grief on the loss of their parents or the near one. So that was another trauma. But in the third wave, when we are not mentally prepared because now the education system has been settled down. So thanks to this corona, that we have learned the better ways of coping. So our education system has refined to that extent that now in the past 2 years, our children, adolescents, they all were attending their classes online. They were able to give their exams. So they have got settled down. But because it's a very huge period now since the past 2 years constantly now, because they are not attending their schools. They are not able to meet their friends in the school. It is only through the through the screen, through the social networking they are able to get connect. So a huge amount of impact in that way that their normal socio-emotional development is somehow they have been deprived of that milestone.
Indeed.
It will have in the future also, that will have an impact on their overall life skills.
We'll come to those aspects also, Dr. Rushi. But you're right in terms of that particular age group. When we're talking about children and adolescents out there, that has been the group which has been most impacted during the first wave and the second wave. They were confined to the four walls of their own houses as well, and that break in the learning process also. But, the other section of the society, specifically the patients themselves who get infected with COVID-19, they spend a lot of time in quarantine. The period of quarantine has come down. Home isolation has come down during this particular wave, but earlier it was almost 15 to 20 days. And the frontline workers as well. Dr. Geeta Desai, your views there on this overall impact, not only children and not only frontline workers, the patients as well, those who are the caregivers for those patients, and of course, people who are old, the elder people as well.
I think it is very important to understand the mental health effects across the age groups. They affect very differently. The second thing is about what happens when a person is infected, what kind of mental health issues they face. Like you mentioned that about quarantine. So what is it that an isolation does to that person? One, there could be fear that you're likely to infect your family members if they are looking after you. The second thing is there has been a lot of discussion on you might worsen on 7th day, 6th day, you might need hospitalization. So there's a lot of information that the persons themselves are aware. So that leads to a lot of uncertainty, and they also get misinformation sometimes. So these can have a significant impact on their mental health. They can become anxious, they can be very worried. So now if they are very worried about it, there can be a physical manifestations of anxiety. So they may breathe faster. So that itself will lead to them thinking that, probably my saturation is getting worse or I'm having more respiratory symptoms. At the same time, I also think that as the acute effect starts waning down, so these are people who have had an experience like this. Whether they can experience long-term anxiety is another question that I think we need to look at, because what we are talking about right now is only the acute effects. Like, for example, what Dr. Rishi mentioned is, they are all undergoing, children and adolescents are undergoing online classes, but long-term effects of screen exposure. So what is it likely to do to children? Now, if socio-emotional development challenges have been there for children, so will that result in long-term effects? So I think these are some of the questions that we need to think about. Coming to other population that I would want to talk about is pregnant women and postpartum period. So many women have faced a lot of challenges. It's more so in the first and second waves, because they had difficulty reaching the hospitals. There was a lot of concerns about taking vaccination, or how does the virus affect the babies and what needs to be done. And because of certain protocols, many women were alone with their babies. So like we know that in our culture, when the close family members are there during the delivery, so a lot of rituals could not be done and they could not get the support. So all these can have mental health impacts. In pregnant women and postpartum women, they had increased anxiety as well as depression.
Indeed.
The other group is elderly. I mean, I think, socialization is a very important aspect of their health. So I think that is another thing, as well as the risk that they could, death is a possibility, and whether their family members would be there or not there. So all these things could lead to anxiety and depression.
So it's basically spread across the age groups, what you're pointing out, Dr. Geeta, and something which Dr. Rushi was also earlier referring to. Let me bring in Dr. Ishwar here. Dr. Ishwar, your point of view in terms of the problem which we are facing vis-a-vis mental health. And mental health is an issue which is, perhaps might have come into a more heightened focus during this particular pandemic. But this has been a problem which has been with us for quite a long time now.
Yeah. Namaste. First of all, I endorse the views of my co-panelists. But I have 5 points here. The pandemic has affected, first of all, it is man is a social animal, and it has affected our social life. Then in India is a very big country where even joint family or the family structure is very, very important. It has affected our family structure. many times because of lockdown and many things. The third aspect is the economical aspect because of lockdown. Many things, especially after the second wave. Now in the third wave, it is going to affect much more because first wave people managed, second wave it was worst. Now it has, it was bad, but now it is going to be worst. The economical aspects. Then India is a very having a rich cultural heritage. So it may be every festival has its meaning in our culture. So that makes our lifestyle. So the lifestyle and the cultural heritage is going to be affected. So then the last most important aspect is many of these things, so we are taking in the negative aspect. The problems we are converting into opportunities. In my opinion, this lockdown has also brought some opportunities to introspect, to regularize our lifestyle, reorient ourselves, rethink about our family structure, cultural structure, social media connections. All these things has some positive aspects also.
Indeed.
I'm seeing that is also going to have the ability to enhance the mental health.
Okay.
It's the way how I.
Okay.
Yes.
Indeed, those are also
Definitely,
important
it
aspects
has
there,
affected.
Dr. Ishwar, which you're pointing out in terms of we've learned a lot. This pandemic has taught us a lot of lessons in terms of improvising our lifestyle, in terms of improvising the way we do a lot of things in our life as well. But that challenge or that problem of mental health issues is a surmounting one. Now, let's now that all of you have identified various ways and the age groups as well in which the issue or the pandemic is affecting the mental health. Let's look at the solutions also. Dr. Rushi, I'll start with you, and let's start with the youngsters first. What are the various ways in which this challenge or this threat of mental health issues can be dealt with in that age group?
I would say rather, whatever the age group, the best way, the more efficiently we can deal with this problem, or the best way we can cope up with this problem, is how efficiently we can, maintain the normalcy of our life. How efficiently the normalcy is maintained, basically. So we just need to focus, especially the youngsters who are spending a lot of time on the screen. So their whole routine is got distorted. So because nowadays, working in a hospital, in our clinics, in our OPDs, when the parents come with this complaint, that my child is starting his or her day, her class, while, they're like staying on the bed only. They will not brush, they will not take their bath, they will not do their breakfast, they will just open their mobile. And in between also, because in India, keeping the videos on is not, mandatory. So most of the time, the students, they just get indulged in playing with the games and all. So a lot of screening time. So because of that, behavioral addiction is increasing. A lot of screen time because they are spending. So I think for the youngsters, for all the children, adolescents, and young people, the best thing is, even for the elders, that how efficiently we can maintain our daily routine, how efficiently we can maintain our sleep cycle. We can have a balanced, good, healthy diet, 6 to 8 hours of sleep, and most importantly, indulging in a workout at least for 1 hour a day. That apply to all the age group, whether they are the youngsters or the elders or women, children, whatever the age group. So,
Okay.
because, in children, we have seen the results also. So when they were indulging in 1 or 2 hours of physical activity, because, there are positive changes in the body. So the neurotransmitters in the hormonal level, in the neurotransmitters. So, they just started living happily with more energy. They could understand better in their studies also. So that is the best way. We just need to shift our focus on the things over which we have control. So because we don't have control over this pandemic, we never expected that again, the third wave we will have in the month of January. We were somehow expecting that will come after the March, like it came last year. So now, because this is something unexpected over which we don't have control, so what we can do just now, that we just need to shift our focus on the thing over which we have control. So we
Okay.
have control over our lifestyle. So we just inculcate those small positive changes in our daily routine. We just need to inculcate gratitude. If we are going for a walk, we are just admiring or appreciating the nature. So practicing the mindful exercises, relaxation exercises, meditation, just simply going for a walk. Even if you are in quarantine, you are inside the home, you can indulge yourself in some physical activity that can create a lot of, positive impact on your physical and mental health as well. And another thing, what Sir was mentioning, I think this is the right time. Sir was mentioning that, the family structure has shattered. So I think that this was the best time in our lifetime in the past 2 years, what I have observed in our families and in all the families across the India, across the world, where we could spend time with each other. So the bonding has got strengthened in each family. So that is something again we need to focus that because in future maybe we will have a lockdown again.
Okay.
So
Indeed,
while sitting at
that is a
home,
very important aspect there which you're mentioning, Dr. Rushi. But coming back to Dr. Desai here, Dr. Desai, from your perspective, ma'am, if we have to understand the ways in which we can tackle the challenge of mental health issues, and you're earlier referring to other age groups and other specific sections of the society as well. For example, the elderly, the pregnant women, and of course the frontline workers.
Yeah, I think of like how we look after her physical health. Somehow, I think looking after mental health is not a priority for many. So, what is it that we can do to take care of our mental health? I think some of the strategies that Dr. Rushi has mentioned, like good nutrition, actually has an impact on a mental health, not just the physical health. Being socially connected with your family and your friends, enhancing support systems. So these are some of the ways you can prevent, take care of your mental health. The second thing that is sometimes you need to be aware of when it is a problem. When you think that this, I am having a lot of anxiety, I'm trying to do my best, but it's not helping me and I need to seek help. I think if you have that awareness that when it is a disorder which needs to be, need a specialist help, I think if they can identify that and seek treatment, because in our country, some of the challenges are stigma related to seeking help from mental health professionals. So I think that is one barrier. The second barrier is also about normalizing some of even the difficulties that they face. Like, for example, it's normal to feel this way, but sometimes I do know that we normalize even the disorders also. So which again delays the whole treatment process or help seeking. So I think it's very important to identify, recognize, and then seek professional help. For elderly, I think, regular good physical health as well as physical activity. At the same time, again, being connected with their families. And many older individuals also have other health issues. They can have conditions like dementia and other things. So there are significant challenges that they face. So I think that's one group. And frontline workers, I think, is another big issue, because one is long working hours in PPEs and having frequent shifts, and they see a lot of difficult circumstances where patients are dying or their own family members are having COVID related complications, and the fear that you might transmit to your family members. So I think these are some of the challenges that are there. So I think there are special services for frontline health workers. I think it's important that we are open to talking to someone about our emotions. I think that is something that we need to. It's okay to talk to someone whom you trust.
Okay.
I think that's something that we need to start practicing.
Okay. So the crux is that first we need to identify the problem. Then we should be willing to go ahead and talk about it, be open about it, communicate, and not attach any stigma to issues related to mental health as well. Dr. Ishwar, I'd like to bring you in here and on a very important aspect of this discussion, and that is, it was mentioned earlier by Dr. Roshi as well, the techniques of meditation or yoga in the way, both of them help deal with mental health issues. If you could tell our viewers how it can be done and what is it that needs to be done?
First of all, one more dimension I would like to mention, which is very important. We talk about age groups, we talk about family, society, others, but at the same time, now there are different categories of people. Those who are affected by COVID, those who are in quarantine, those who are healthcare workers, those who have overcome in the rehabilitation process. Their states are different, mental states are different. So accordingly, we have to develop the yoga protocols or the clinical procedures in the psychology to manage their psychological well-being. Then second point I would like to, we live in our mind. Entire yoga is understanding the mind and its management. The whole thing is. And meditation is the core of yoga. It's not a separate, it's an integral part of yoga sadhana. So there are some asanas and breathing techniques, pranayama, or other things. All are leading to, they are all preparatory practices leading to meditation. Meditation is yoga. Therefore, how to do that? There are 5 ways. One is, first of all, it starts with detoxification. So there may be some rules to moral rules, social rules, and some clinical practices like Neti, Dhauti, Kapalbhati, etc. to detoxify the toxins entering into our body. So they are very cost effective, very simple. And second one is the diet modification. So diet plays an important role in our mental well-being. So timely diet and the seasonal and other things, and it is very simple. That is the second important. Third one is the body alignment. Sometime now in the pandemic condition, I'm talking only about this pandemic condition. So sometimes we used to sit more and when time to stand more, something like that. So the body alignment is very important. That's why we need some postures to align the body. The fourth one is the breathe alignment. So channelization of the breathing. So this channelization of breathing leads to concentration. So that prolonged concentration leads to meditation. Once meditation happens, people start understanding and modifying their lifestyle.
Okay.
Modifying their thought process. We call it in psychological terms that we have to change our mindset. So adaptability will be increased by such type of thing. Therefore, detoxification, diet modification, posture modification, or body alignment, breathe alignment, and leads to concentration, and then meditation happens. Once meditation happens, that brings the change of attitude and adjustability, and all these things will happen. Therefore, co-opting with the situation. That's why during last more than 1.5 years, or almost 2 years, we're continuously working with the patients and all these things. We never taken any leave, but we are adjusting with the environment because of this type of adaptability that the yoga, particularly Dhyana, gives. It needs, we developed a model for half an hour for the healthcare workers. Morning, it few asanas, 3-4 asanas and breathing techniques. And evening, particularly, relaxation and deep breathing practices, which helps to improve the quality of sleep.
Mm-hmm.
Most importantly, we forget the importance of sleep in the mental health. Sleep plays an important role, and there are very, very simple technologies in yoga by adapting, by pressing, by breathing, which enhances. There are some clinical evidences are also there, which enhances the quality of sleep, not only the hours of sleep, the quality of sleep is more important. Therefore, the yoga practices helps to improve like this adaptivity and also the mental.
Okay, indeed, those are really, really important points there, which you mentioned, Dr. Ishwar and Dr. Roshi as well, along with Dr. Desai. Thank you so much for your views and insight on how to tackle the challenges of mental health issues during the COVID-19 pandemic. And of course, one of the important aspect here is to identify the problem, accept it, be open about it, communicate, seek help, and most importantly, do not attach any stigma to issues related to mental health. We'll come back again tomorrow with a different topic. Till then, keep watching Sunset Television. Thank you.